Good evening, everyone, and I would like to introduce you to Professor Olenka Bilash, a longtime friend of the International and Heritage Languages Association and a lifetime advocate and promoter of second language and international languages and pedagogy. She has authored many books on international methodology, international language methodology. She's taught in Japan, South Africa, Brazil, among many other countries, communicating the importance of not only the importance of maintaining heritage languages, but also on the importance of intercultural communication and intercultural understanding. Her work is seminal in the area of educational research addressing all of these topics, and we are excited to have her for this PD on multimodal learning. Thank you, Professor Bilash.
Oh, thank you very much, Antonella. Please call me Olenka. So I'm really happy to be here. As Antonella said, I'm always happy to be among ELA friends, and I'm just going to start my screen share right here. And can everyone see it? Whoops,
yes.
We're on the right page. There we go. Oh,
yes, we can see.
Good. Okay, so in some ways, I'm always curious what brings people to a workshop. And in a minute, I'm going to get you to introduce yourselves very briefly, and I'm going to ask you to say, why are you interested in multimodal learning? And I was going to do an land acknowledgement, but it's already been done, so I'm happy to hear that. And what we're going to do is look at what is multimodal learning, why is it important, and how can we put it into action. So here we are. Who am I and who are you? And why are you interested in multimodal learning? So you can volunteer, or I can tell you. What would you like? Oh, don't be shy, come on. Okay, Marina, with that great big smile. Why are you interested in multimodal learning? And you can tell me a bit about yourself as well.
So, hi, all of you know I'm the IT coordinator for ELA. I'm also a teacher at the Italian school at Comitato. And well, I'm interested in multimodal learning because as a teacher, I guess you have to be pretty flexible and be able to, teach multimodal.
Okay, good. Okay, thank you. Mirto, how about you?
Okay, my name is Mirto, or Mirsimi Kafkadulis, and I'm teaching at St. George's Greek Language School. And I'm interested in this session because I'm already using it for years, and I would like to see if something new is going on or sharing. I learn new stuff always, and I like you, Olenka. I like your teachings, and I enjoy every time we did it. I had so much fun.
Oh, thank you. Great. And Grace, how about you?
Hi, I'm the new program coordinator for ELA, but for many, many years, over 20 years, I've been teaching in elementary school. So my specialization is actually in early literacy. Okay. And learning with little children, they learn best when you have all the sensories. Capturing it, right? So when you're learning the alphabet, you sing it, you draw it, you use, paper mache to shape it, you use animals to, distinguish them. So yeah, I think in essence, as teachers, we've actually been doing it without even acknowledging it, right? So we're just natural as teachers to do that because we want our students to be engaged.
Great.
And it's a natural thing for us. But learning more strategies would be better for us too, right? Because that's why we're teachers. We learn. our greatest gifts are to steal from each other, right? And borrow those strategies and concepts. So yeah, so I'm excited to hear. I've only gone to one of your seminars actually, and very interested in all the other ones. And yes, I'd like to hear more.
Okay, wonderful. And let's see, who is next? Shall I keep volunteering? Antonella.
Hi, my name is Antonella, and I am a teacher at the Comitato Promotore della Lingua Italiana Language School, and I am interested in this session, not only because Olenka gives wonderful and informative sessions that are always well able to be used straight away in the classroom. What I would like to come away with is also new strategies and new ideas, as Mirto mentioned, in order to help reach not only our mainstream students, however, also our students who have special needs, special cognitive developmental needs, because the traditional ways of teaching in terms of using the 7 ways of teaching, I feel like it would be nice to learn other new strategies for these little ones who are making their way, who are learning to learn and getting new ideas to help them learn to learn.
Wonderful, wonderful. Let's see, Parminder.
Hi, my name is Parminder Walia. I was teacher in my back home from India, but here from 15 years, I am teaching in Ramgarhia Gurdwara, language, Punjabi language. So this is my first experience and I want to learn more thing because that way is different from here. So this is my also learning program. I want to learn and spread in the students.
Wonderful. Well, very nice. Welcome. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Lesya.
Well, we haven't been running for the last 2 years because we just haven't. We haven't done online because conversational and small group work is just really critical for adults. So we've been on hold, but I, as the coordinator or principal of this school, there's always something to learn, and all of these young faces all contribute interesting points of view, and I never stop learning myself. So there you go, I'm here.
Wonderful. Well, that's so true of you. I've known you a long time and you are an eager learner for sure. Aneta, how about you?
Okay. Hello, can you hear me?
We
Okay.
can, yes.
I'm so sorry I have problem with my video because I'm just using my cell and I have to drive a little bit later on. But later, don't worry, everything will be safe. I'm just teaching Polish language at Chrzanowska Polish School, kindergarten class. And as all of the teachers mentioned before, I just want to learn something because you never know what you can use in your class. And we have to be ready, especially in this time.
Okay, that sounds wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Sophia, lovely to see you. How are you doing?
I'm great, thank you. How about yourself?
Good, good, good.
Nice
And
to
what
see
brings
too.
you here today?
One, because you're presenting.
Oh, no. The pressure, the pressure. Okay.
And two, it's just a nice refresher, just to remember that, it's not paper, pencil, right? And how else can we get them in? And everyone's sharing the ideas. And sometimes you just need a reminder to go back, right? And I know, Olenka, like you're a firm believer of quick 5-minute activities, and I still remember all of that. So I try to structure that, right? Like quick 5 minutes and your next activity. And getting them the kinesthetic, the auditory, the visual, and all of that. So that's why I'm here, just to see what else I can grasp or refresh or remember and apply it.
Super, thank you.
Thank you.
Alaknanda, or is it Alaknanda? Apologies. You are muted. Could you take yourself off mute, please? Yes.
Hello, everybody. I teach adult students in Hindi school, Alberta Hindi Parishad, and I am joining this to learn more strategies so I can make learning more fun for my students. And these PD sessions are always very helpful for me, and I apply them in my classroom. So that's why I'm interested.
Wonderful. Well, welcome. Olga?
Which one? Carlos?
I only see one Olga.
Okay, because usually there are two.
Okay, it's you.
I remember seeing your name in my university course packs with the Bilash and the B Slim. So I wanted to make sure that I would attend one of your seminars online.
Okay, well, welcome. Thank you. Vasiliki. Are you there?
Yeah, sorry, I'm just actually doing work for my other job so I can make it to both things. So I teach at St. George's as the preschool and kindergarten teacher, and I've actually attended a couple of your sessions, so I just attend them to get new ideas and help out some of the other teachers who can't make the sessions as well.
Okay, nice. Thank you. And let's see. Gopali?
Yes, hi. So I am a teacher at the Alberta Hindi Parishad, and I'm teaching the younger kids right now. I really was interested in this session because I wanted to learn different ways of teaching. I know every student has a different way of learning or different methods that might click for them. So I just wanted to see or learn different ways I can kind of introduce my lessons to them.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And welcome. Josephine, I haven't forgotten about you.
Hi, Olenka. Nice to see you again, my friend. Okay, the reason why I will never miss any of your sessions is because you have been the guiding star of ELA from the time we started.
Oh,
and even long before that, and it's not revealing how old we are, Olenka. But of course, I have taught from kindergarten, all the levels, all the way to grade 12 and university level as well. And the multimodal style that you have taught us, not just through strategic learning at the university, but with your PDs and so on, they really are the very influential techniques and strategies, whatever kind of a language you're teaching.
Oh, great.
And of course, for the Filipino language, we have 175 languages in the Philippines. And one of the major communicative skill that we all have is our non-verbal way of communication. And with your multimodal, you make use of all the 5 ways of learning a language, not just verbal, not just narrative, but everything with your eyes and your lips and whatever you do for an action in order to be able to be understood in any language. So that's the reason why I will never miss any of your sessions. I love it dearly. And every time you present something, there's always something that I get, aha, aha, aha. So that's the way I will do it, despite the fact that I have over 40 years of teaching, of years of experience. So thank you, Olenka. Welcome again.
Well, thank you. I think that's true of everyone. We keep coming back because we like the people and we learn from one another. I am sorry that this session can't be in person because there's so many games and things that we could play that are multimodal that I just can't teach you online. I'm sorry about that. So I've picked a few other kinds of activities for us to do. And if there's ever a chance, when it's a little warmer, I'm not sure even in this month that I'd like to do an outdoor session that's multimodal, but in the coming months, I'd be happy to share some of the more interesting games that I didn't gear this to that. So I hope there won't be disappointment, but anyway, it is what it is. So
Well, thank you for already booking yourself for next fall.
Oh dear, no. If we can be in person, really, some of this is much more engaging and more fun. But let's go with what we've got. So many of you have already described aspects of multimodal learning, but I would say that it is a way of teaching for learning that taps into visual, things that students see, auditory that they hear, using reading and writing, even if it's early literacy, and kinesthetic or movement related learning. And it does tap into all of the senses. And what I find most appealing about it is its creative possibilities. It can be creative for teachers, and it calls students to be creative. And I think that's something that we can easily forget, especially if we get kind of bogged down in accuracy, always looking for the correct way for students to do things. So when we think of how they're going to learn, of course, we're talking about what they see, what they hear, using all of their senses, and let's say reading or looking at pictures. But the active expression, which is their creativity, is what we should be most interested in. And that will include creating visuals or finding visuals, writing, even if it's beginning writing, speaking and telling us what they have learned, maybe moving and acting out to show that they understand something, and listening, especially to their peers. So if you've got 10 students and one's giving a presentation, the other one should be listening and learning from that. So I really want to kind of plant the seed of creativity and using as many senses as possible today. So as we all know, students can sing, they can dance, they can do art, they can draw, they can feel things, they can smell things, they can listen, touch, see, write, read. In addition to creativity, the goal of multimodal learning is to appeal to the diversity of learners. So we should be able to create a task in a way that all levels of learners can participate in and can create. In the end, there will be a difference in the quality of what students create. But what's most important is they all have the chance to create, okay? And of course, games, but I've already said, I'm sorry, there's not going to be games tonight. You can leave if you have to, and if no one's left, I'll mourn that I made a bad call. I was going to ask you to give some ideas, some examples, but I think I'm going to save that to the end and let you share ideas that you have and that you've done, and we might be able to group you according to the levels that you learn. So I'd like to move into the why. This is the one thing I always feel really strongly about as teachers. When we understand why something is important, then we're, I think, more empowered to make decisions. Whereas if we're only following what to do and something goes wrong, it's like the car brakes and we don't know why the motor isn't functioning. We need to have some of the why. So why is multimodal learning important? Well, of course, as I've said, it taps into all of our senses. And that experiential learning is so powerful. And it really plays an important role in the neuroscience, because we know, and I'll talk about this in a moment, that the brain has different parts that have different responsibilities for different functions. And the more parts of the brain that are clicking simultaneously, the greater the potential for learning and the faster will be the learning. Now, when we look at research, we talk often about knowledge construction. In other words, students learning and putting ideas together in their brain. We also talk about engagement. This means motivation. This means excitement for learning. This means desire to learn. And I know teachers are always struggling with trying to motivate students. And in public schools, we often say because it's worth marks, right? It's like we hold the carrot in front of students because, oh, how many points is it worth? That we don't do to the same extent, and maybe that's a good thing, in the heritage language classroom. But we want students to want to do things on their own. And then the third reason, as I've already mentioned a few times, is I don't want to say it's not that one size fits all. It's exactly the opposite. It's our responsibility to give students an opportunity to express what they know in many different ways. We tend to be very, very much reading and writing based, right? That's what has the highest value as you move on in schools. But it isn't always the greatest demonstration of learning. Or no, let me rephrase that. For some students, that's not an adequate demonstration of learning. So in cultures that are more steeped in oral tradition, I've given oral exams to students and they've passed 100%. And on a written exam, they might get 30%. Okay, so do they know the information? Yes, they do. But the way we ask the question and what we ask them to create to demonstrate their knowledge doesn't match actually what they know. So we need to have more ways to have them demonstrate that. So as I mentioned, the neuroscience, this is supposed to be a brain, and every color shows a kind of different part of the brain. And our goal is to get all of these synapses lit up so that students are more engaged. And one thing that we know when more parts of the brain are functioning is that there are endorphins that are released that become self-motivational. We say students can get into flow when they're creating. But there's two other important concepts, and one is self-agency and another is self-efficacy. So what is self-agency? This is when students drive their own learning. And this means that if possible, they can even initiate what they're learning. When I think of self-agency, and I'm sorry, my visual here is more about self-efficacy. When I think of self-agency, I think of the teacher creating an assignment and giving students choice. And therefore, they're choosing. And when they choose, they make a commitment to do something that they selected. Whereas if there's no choice and everyone's doing the same one thing, then there's no self-agency. Okay, you might have spent a lot of time choosing this activity, thinking about the levels of your students' language, their age group, the interests you know about, but no choice means no possibility of self-agency. Well, not quite. It could be that what you assign some students really like, so they immediately engage in self-agency. So what we're looking for is their ability to choose what they want to do. That leads us now to self-efficacy. And self-efficacy is the student's belief that they can do the task. Okay, so this is a little bit different than the choice. And I've often given students choices with a greater emphasis on kinesthetic and musical maybe, and then another emphasis on that's more like reading and writing traditional, and maybe another emphasis that's art in combination with something. And it's very interesting who chooses what. And some people are willing to take a risk and some are not. So self-efficacy is the ability to take a risk as well, to have enough confidence that they will take a risk. So how do you get to self-efficacy? And what are some of those other pieces? So I think of them as you've got the cautious learner, very teacher-centered, waiting to do whatever the teacher says. As those learners become more, more able, their self-esteem grows, then they're more willing to maybe work in a pair and initiate some of their own ideas. And then we move to having to have much more self-confidence. And now they're becoming learner-centered. So think about it as walking across this swinging bridge. Oh, I don't think I can do it. No, no, no. And the other person maybe saying, yes, you can, come on. Giving encouragement, give it a try. I'm here on the other side, or maybe even I'll hold your hand and help you. And now it's like, okay, well, maybe I can do it. And then they get there and it's like, oh yes, I'm further across the bridge than I have left to go. And then of course, that wonderful experience of I did it. Now, the teacher's role is right in here. And that is where you're giving the encouragement and the praise the first time around. And then after they've done it once or twice, now when you give them the next similar task, they will understand what's expected and be more able. So I'm really interested in this self-efficacy, helping them to build confidence. Now, in the heritage language program, some of that confidence is not being afraid to try using the language, right? The minute they're afraid to use the language, then they can't do it. So what do? We provide support, lots of structure that helps them succeed slowly but surely until they realize they can do something, whatever that is. So ultimately, what develops the self-efficacy is experience, having done something before. And I'm thinking about things like playing games, taking the leadership in a game, or perhaps giving a presentation, an oral presentation, or perhaps singing a song loudly in front of other people. And so you need the experience, but that experience will only really count if students are in a safe environment. They need a safe place. So I thought I would stop here just for a second and ask you what a safe environment means for you. How do you know if your classroom is safe? And you know what? This is a good time to try a couple of breakout rooms. I'm sure you'll, let's see, we'll have 3 breakout rooms. And the question is, what's a safe environment? And is your classroom safe? And how do you know? Okay, so I only got to visit each room for a few minutes, but I would say that it was wonderful to hear things like, I have to have fun, and if I'm not having fun, they're not having fun. And one reason for that is modeling. I can't stress the importance of modeling enough. But the second thing, and this is also super, super important, is, and I heard it in most groups, it's okay to make mistakes. And the minute that a learner of any age feels that you're after a right answer and they don't know if they know it, you've broken down their desire to participate, and actually the modalities that they normally have access to shut down. They're afraid to do anything. So it's really important that they feel that it's okay to make mistakes and that it's fun. One of my youngest grandson says, I make an oopsie daisy. Oh, it's just an oopsie daisy. And I thought he learned that at home. And I thought that was a really wonderful way. You don't even use the word mistake. You know, when you're little, it's like, oh, oopsie daisy. And so you just grow up with that. And even now, if something goes wrong, you know, he just says, oh, it's just an oopsie daisy. And he knows to self-correct. So we want to get that into the atmosphere of the classroom. So how are we going to do this in the context of a heritage language class? So I'm going to look at 5 things. And the first and really important one is the teacher versus the student role. So a teacher's job on this side is to create a task. We create things for our students to do. Then we create the supports for them to succeed at doing it. And then we give them feedback along the way so they can improve. We also give them encouragement and other support. And in the end, we do some assessment. Now, what then is the student's role? Well, the student is supposed to understand the task, make sure it's clear what they're supposed to be doing. They're going to be going through some stages. Some will go through it faster. They might need more support, so they're going to be utilizing the supports, and some of them will skip over some supports and others will need more. As they're moving along, they're supposed to show what they're doing or accept being observed, whether that's by a teacher or maybe a task that they do at home. They have to be able to revise, improve, grow. And I know those sounds like really words for older students, but at all ages, you have to be able to accept feedback and learn from it, okay? And that's why safety is so important. And how you go about doing it is the teacher's personality and relationship. And you want to, and I think a student's role is not only written, but especially in heritage language classrooms, we must have lots of oral presentations because the oral presentation is what makes the language feel like it's alive and living. And if you've got really advanced students linguistically, and they already use the target language exclusively and a high level, then those oral presentations are not so difficult. And maybe the written is a way of maintaining and developing the language. But as we all know, recent immigrants that come to Canada, and children in particular, adopt English very quickly. And as they adopt English, their heritage language begins to become less habitually used. And as that practice of not using it increases, so does the sort of the cognitive synapses that say, oh, what's that word again? And you begin to hear them using several languages. It's not that that's a problem. It's that we want to really keep that oral language alive. So I was going to have us chat, but I'm going to go on. The next thing that we want to do is we want to help students have access to as many authentic materials as possible. So authentic materials are the same things that native speaking children would have in their, if they were like in their country, for example. So what would native speaking children of the age of your students see, hear, read, write? And it's a little bit different from the word realia, because realia are the symbols of the culture, and they usually don't have language. So they can include objects such as flags, definitely clothing is a realia, food is a realia, and all of those things are part of the culture, but we want to try to use authentic materials. So if you're teaching preschool or early learners, you want to have lots and lots of songs. You want those kids to be hearing those songs and singing along and clapping along, and those songs end up having maybe some words that you can change in them, so you personalize those songs. You want to be reading stories to them. I know that when I was reading stories, I would sometimes find authentic materials, but I knew that some of the vocabulary would be a little bit tough. I'd still read the book, show the pictures, but I might change some of the words or shorten some of the text, but they can still get the story. So a story is authentic material, and of course, it's also cultural. So what are examples? And here are examples of written forms and examples of oral forms. So written forms, if your students are already able to do some reading and writing, we want them to be able to use websites if possible. We want them to be able to look at menus, maybe interviews in magazines, posters, billboards, pamphlets, brochures, cards, horoscopes. Now, where are you going to find some of these things? So there are several places. The first one is within your own communities. There are almost always stores that sell food, almost always, because people can't live without the food from their cultures. So the question is, do those stores have billboards near the entranceway? Billboards that show posters of upcoming events in the community, or billboards that may have items that are for sale, or a babysitter that speaks the language. And so you're looking for those places, or perhaps as a heritage language teacher, you can create that so that students see the language more often, just like they see English everywhere. Excuse me. And the oral examples are songs, weather reports, maybe a radio station or a TV station in your language. I mean, a radio program or a TV program in your language. and there are many of these kinds of forms, I call them. And this is important, and I'll get to why in a minute. Because for every task you give them, you want to follow what I call a raft. The task should tell us what role the students have, who their audience is, what form they are creating, and what the topic is. So let's look at an example. Imagine that this is the task that we give. You are the owner of a much loved pet, and your pet has gone missing. Create a poster to put up around the neighborhood and local shopping centers. So I always like to begin a task with you. So what's the role of the student if they're going to complete this task? I need some volunteers. The role of the student.
So are you saying the student is going to be the owner?
Exactly, the student is the owner, exactly. Who is the audience? Or maybe I said, what are they creating? What is the form?
They're informing the public that there's a cat.
Right. Their audience is anybody who sees the poster. Okay, what is the form that they're creating?
Information form.
The poster.
The poster.
So the form, this is where we look at, is it a website? Is it a pamphlet? Is it a brochure? Is it a card? No, in this case, it's a poster. Okay. And what is the topic of this task?
Missing pet.
A missing pet, right, good. Now I have to tell you, I could have changed the order, and you can make it fart if you like and talk about the form first and then the audience and then the role and then the topic. But I just wasn't sure if that was appropriate for this audience, okay?
I think I'm using that one.
Okay, yeah, I think the kids would like it better, but I tried to, you never know. Now that I've met you, I think it's okay. Okay, good. So you see the task has to say these 4 things, and it should not be long. Okay, so we can start with the form. What are you creating? Who are you creating it for? What role do you have? Like, what kind of a character are you? And what you don't want is you don't want this to be you're the student and I'm the teacher, right? They have to feel that they're creating this not just for the teacher. And and if you're in a position to, in your school, you have a bulletin board or that you can display samples of students' work, then they can feel like their work is actually seen by someone and not just handed in for a bunch of red blood marks. I did a study, it's now several decades ago, and it was about writing. And what students said is they began to write less and less and less. Why? Because then they would see less red marks when the teacher gave their writing back. It's kind of sad, right? Now, I think one way of doing it is not correcting every single error, right? Choosing the things that you are going to highlight. And, but that's something to keep in mind. Okay, the next thing is balancing challenge and support. So by challenge, I mean the difficulty of the task. And by support, I mean the support you give for the success of the task. So here, challenge means how much are you asking them to do? How complex is it? Oh, how much do they have to already learn in order to complete this? How long will it take them? What is this something that's going to be heavy? Or is it something that's going to be easy and exciting for them? So they're going to invest in it. So this is not just cognitive, it is also affective or emotional. The more emotion that's positive, the more they will enjoy the task. The heavier the emotion, that some students will be turned off hearing something because of self-efficacy. You say, oh, today we're going to make, you're all going to write a brochure. And the first feeling is, there's no way I can do that. So you don't even have a chance to get investment. So the teacher's job is to select a task that has the potential to meet a whole variety of learners. So what do we look for? We look for modeling. A teacher should always be modeling and always give examples of what you want students to do. Many teachers avoid this because they think, oh, well, then they're just going to copy this. Well, you know what? The student who has to copy it needs to be able to copy it. That's their level. Too highly structured. So you've given some choice, but lots of support all the way along. So they develop the feeling of success. To some structure, but maybe not as much. So they have a little bit more freedom for their own creativity. To guiding them, not specifying. And of course, if someone's just needing guidance, that means their language level is higher already. We would know that. To just saying, well, you know, I'd like you to create a poster, but you can do whatever you want. That would be non-guided. Whereas modeling is, I might show them 4 or 5 different posters of pets missing and different animals, so they can see that they can be different. I'm not giving them one template that is just repeated over and over again. And I think this is probably next to the teacher's role, the most important thing, and that is trust. You actually have to believe your students can do this, that they will do this, and they will enjoy doing this. And if you don't trust your students, then you become a teacher that still stands at the front of the class and has everybody doing exactly the same thing. And even though what they're doing may involve many modalities, they're all doing the same thing. So you're not giving as much choice or scope. So I can't really stress trust enough. We've done this task, and I'm going to take the same task, and I just want to bring to your attention other ways, other things that we're thinking about in this task. So we're thinking about fart for sure in the task. Now, what level do you think students need to be at in order to complete this task? Would beginner students be able to do it? Or do they have to be intermediate? Or, oh, they have to be advanced? Or would advanced students find this boring and intermediate students find it boring and it's only for beginner students? This is really important because when you choose a task, if it can't meet the needs of different learners, then it can't, it's not going to be able to be multimodal. Okay, so what do you think?
I think all levels will be able to do this task, but the level of instruction for it and the way you present it will be different, right? So, you know, like it can be as elaborate or as simple as a, you know, piece of paper with a drawing of the pet. The word lost and then the information, right?
Good.
That's the information. And then as elaborate as lost cat with like highlights on the website, right? So things like that would be a little bit more higher level with knowledge of computer. Like I won't be able to do it, right? But you know, like kids can surely do that or animate it, right? Lost cat, like so.
Absolutely. Good. Good. Okay. Now, which grade level-ish would it be good for? So remember, you can have beginners at all ages, and you can have relative advanced at all ages. So which grades would this be good for? I'm going like with grade 1 to 3, so that's 8 and under, grades 4 to 6, 7 to 9, 10 to 12.
May I speak?
I'm sorry?
May I speak?
Yes, please.
Well, I use posters and lost and found and things like that. I used to have a classroom with grade 6 in there, 2 students in grade 6. That one of the students, 2 students were very advanced, and then I had up to grade credits 35 that the girl never spoke Greek and she had to create that. So it's the way I gave them the task, and I asked them to do a paragraph, but it was a paragraph for the advanced kids, the kids who could write, and everybody had to provide a picture. That was everybody had to provide a title. That was a title, missing dog, their own way. Before I gave them that, though, I built the vocabulary. I asked, like, I'm never giving a task without building vocabulary. And I say every year the goal is for the younger kids, like the lower level, at least 25 words a year, not a year, a season, like every five months, 4 months, and then the older kids up to 50, 60 words, new words, plus the old one. So that the requirement, that's how I built this. I asked them to use a paragraph. Younger kids can write sentences or as a picture and words, description, describing, adjectives, whatever they can use to make a splash for this.
Okay, so we've established that this task could be used at any level of learner, and that it could be used for any age group, okay? Of course, it will look different depending on that, but this is what enables the multimodality, okay? If it's too focused on only one language level or one, I mean, if it's one age group and all the students are together and there's enough students for that one class, it's okay. Okay. And then if we look at this again, we're looking for listening, speaking, reading, and writing. And when I think of speaking, I think of solo speaking. And when I think of, or interaction. So imagining this task and what the students create, does it involve listening? Well, only if there's a presentation at the end. Okay, because this itself is reading and writing, correct? But if they have to present their poster, and this is their chance to talk about their favorite pet, then they can use the picture of the poster, talk about their pet, and then students can ask questions. So then it would cover all of these modalities as well: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. And that's the other thing that you want, not to have only speaking activities, only reading, only writing. You want to integrate them all as much as possible in the overall task. But what all of you have mentioned when you said it would depend on the age and the grade and the ability is the word criteria. We need to have criteria for the task. And that is what helps to determine, and that is a form of support. So I'm going to show you some criteria, and then we could maybe say, oh, that's now this is for this age level or for this ability level. So the poster has to have a photo of your pet. And that photo you could just take off of the internet. It could also be a drawing. You want a description of the pet, the age, the color, maybe the identification. You want to say where the pet was lost, when your pet was lost, how to contact you. Is there a reward? And you want to make sure that the poster is easy to read and attractive. And I say easy to read, that means neat and legible, and that there's something about the poster that's appealing, okay? And what will be the language criteria? And this is where you would add something like, full sentences, if you want full sentences, right? Or if someone wants a paragraph, you must have X number of sentences in a paragraph. Or I would say something like you must use 5 different adjectives or 3 different verbs, okay? So that's where you add those in. And you can use it more or make it more difficult or less difficult. So that is what I mean by you have your task, but you need the criteria. And if you give the students the criteria, you're giving them support about what they're supposed to be doing. Okay. And then the next thing is I would use the support, and after they are completed, I would ask them to questions, and I would call that a checklist. So the checklist is going to look like, did you, and look at your criteria, did you include a photo of your pet? Did you describe your pet? Okay, so it's right linked with your criteria. Did you tell us your pet's age? The color of your pet? Did you give us some information about the collar or tag? Next, did you state, what do you think will be the next one? The next criteria? I mean, the next point on the checklist. It's right
Address.
there.
Address.
Yes. Did you state where your pet was lost? State when your pet was lost. So what the criteria match this, and this is a form of support. So before the students hand something in, they double, triple check. Now, I've chosen this particular task because we're doing this in an online forum, but it could easily be making up a song or using different modalities as well. Now, this is not about how to teach this. This is about setting the end goal so that you know students will be able to do everything. Okay. What I wanted to do now is I wanted to show you some posters. Well, no, actually, hold on. Oh, sorry, I've lost you there for a second. Okay, so as I said, this didn't appeal as much to all the games and all the modalities that you can think of, but instead, I wanted you to think about the development of self-efficacy and self-agency, and utilizing all the parts of the brain as well as all of the modalities. So I'm going to ask you, I'm going to put you in breakout groups for a minute or two, new breakout groups, and I want you to maybe talk about some of the things that have stood out for you today, and in particular, what kind of a task you could give students as an end task that would appeal to diverse learners and allow them to create something. So this is an example of an EFL class rather, and the assignment was to create a poster of an animal. And so what I thought I would ask you to do is to look at all three posters. So all students had the exact same task. But which poster, the one on the left, the middle, or the right, do you think had students with the least linguistic ability? And why?
I think the one on the koalas is the student that had the least linguistic abilities.
And why do you think so?
Because it is informative and it is using short sentences that provide facts and also included a lot of color to make it visually interesting, and used pictures for the information. So like under the natural enemies, as opposed to making like long sentences, the student actually drew two pictures, one of the dingo and one of the python.
Right.
As opposed to the other two posters where they wrote out the natural enemies or what have you. Like they have less, it has less visual in terms of providing the information. So the drawings are the information.
Okay.
Under the heading.
And which one is the most, which one would you say require or demonstrates the most linguistic ability?
The one on the right about the red boxes?
Right, because you can clearly see there's a lot, many more words there, right? So what's important here is the criteria. Okay, and if you give them the same criteria, but you trust they will still meet the criteria or answer the questions in the way that they are able, then you will see the diversity being appealed to. So looking at all three posters, what are the criteria?
I think you just had to describe the animal and list facts about the animal. So range, habitat, where it's from, like information about it, weight, height, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And it looks like you probably had to include at least one picture because they all have at least one picture of the animal.
Okay, good. So you have to do something about where it lives, right? And if you look where it lives and where they live. So you have to be quite precise where they live. And they had to include a map. And so by specifying that they have to include a map, you are already adding the possibility of using visuals and lowering the cognitive load. Okay, it's easier for them to be able to point. And some students might even just say, the name of the animal lives here, as opposed to the name of the country. but they can still succeed at that task. Okay, so where it lives. The next thing is what it eats. Very specifically, what it eats and foods. So this group rephrased that, and you can see they added more information. But the visuals came across with the pictures of the eucalyptus leaves here, and what it eats was done through other snakes, lizards, and rodents. The third criteria is how it bears its young. And this we were trying to get at whether, not necessarily using the word reptile or mammal, but does it come from an egg or not? Okay, so that might not be a criteria you used, but here it is, how it bears its young, how it bears its young. And I think this one was called babies. Okay. The next criteria, it's natural enemies. And this one, natural enemies, and this one, enemies. Okay. The next criteria was how it helps people on the planet. Another word for that could be benefits. Well, I think, yeah, benefits. And notice here, it's mainly visual. And benefits here is a sentence. And then some interesting facts. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 criteria about the information they share. Plus, it must include a map. It must include a visual. It must be legible and presentable. Okay, so these posters were developed in groups. And so that meant that different students, this increased the talk and it increased the decision-making about what would be included and what would not be included. And often, if you listen to the groups as they're making the posters, you will hear the strongest person with language kind of taking responsibility for that, whereas another student might be the best artist or the best printer. And so you've got, again, a different sharing of skills and diversity. Okay, so when I do this, I bring posters in for students to look at, and I ask them to tell me what the criteria are. Okay, because they're now looking for what's the same in all of them. And then we reinforce what they're supposed to do. Whereas if I don't ask them to look for the criteria, all that they do is like they notice the images. And by doing that more careful look, it becomes clearer in their mind what they're supposed to be doing. And when they go look at the posters, they go with their groups. Now that becomes interesting because some see different things than others see. Okay, now, same posters, but the criteria for the presentation. Okay, and so for the presentation, one criteria is everyone must speak. And everyone must point to the poster as they're speaking. And what, curiously enough, the one that has the most writing is the most likely to read, even if they have more language ability. Whereas these presenters will tend to speak more naturally using the cues that are here in the poster. Okay, so what are the presentation criteria? That would be up to you. But in my case, I always say I give a time limit. Everyone must speak. And I try to put no reading, but I know that the least confident students need to be able to read, and I consider that support. Okay, The next thing that I wanted to mention as we bring this to a close is the use of technology. The challenge I find in heritage language classes is sometimes if you're located in a church, for example, or you're renting a space, you don't have access to technology on site. And I think that that would be a goal that we would like to work to improve, because there are so many exciting things that can be done as homework, for example, and then shown in class that we can't do if we don't have access to technology. So I'm not sure how many people are familiar with Flipgrid, but who is familiar with Flipgrid? Sophia, okay. So it's free, which is really nice. And I would imagine today most children have access to technology at home, correct? Most children. So this, I find Flipgrid to be a great homework task. And students can prepare something at home and then send it to you for confirmation that they're doing their homework. Or if you can access it in the school, you can share the students' creations. And they always feel really excited about it. You can also make Flipgrid available so students can watch one another. Now, this was a Flipgrid that he did that I simultaneously videotaped. But can you see down here in the corner, the props he's using? Okay, so it takes a minute and a half for him to videotape this. And what he's basically saying is, you know, he's given, instead of just doing a little talk about a country, he's named it like travel, you know, on television, you see travels with, so travels with so-and-so. And he says, like, would you like to come to Mexico with me? And then he shows the flag. And then later he shows things that you can see and do and eat in Mexico. And then
like a blog.
Yeah, I guess like a blog. And then he shows a map. And so what I had wanted to say to you is that took that 1.5 minute video that other people might look at and say, oh, well, that was cute, took at least an hour of preparation, at least an hour. And the teacher did not provide any support for it. I created all the support. So I created and talked to him about a plan. He had some ideas, then I threw in a question. Then he thought, oh, good idea. Then we went around, looked for material. Then he had to rehearse. Then he had to decide the order that was logical. He had to practice. So what I'm saying then is if you provide that support and you give students an interesting task, and in this case, it was about a country, but yours could be about a city in a place, could even be about Edmonton or their community. And your criteria is to use props. Kids will be super creative and they all look forward to seeing what one another creates, and they're using the language outside of classroom. But that's only possible really with the use of technology, I would say. And Antonella, I know you work with younger children, and I'm sorry, I can see that the other example I have is of puppets, finger puppets, talking to one another. And it's very simple, you know, just saying sort of, hello, how are you? I'm fine, what's your name? My name is, you know, and then it can grow from week to week from hello, and they can choose the finger puppets or they can use sock puppets. What, you know, there's so much potential for practicing the language in a creative way outside of the classroom by using technology.
Well, it's funny you say that because of COVID, we got rid of our stuffies, which includes like a basket full of puppets. And as you were talking about reading books, the first thing that I thought of is if we're able to do it, because we're going to have to watch them every day,
Yeah.
is while we read a storybook, we're going to all give them puppets so then they can act out what they hear.
Yes.
So then number one, it keeps their attention because they are, ciao Alessio. They don't sit still to read a story.
Right.
And if they have the puppets, they have to sit still to listen to the story because their puppet then has to act out whatever we're reading.
Yes.
So hopefully that'll be the buy-in. However, we have to figure out what bag we put them in as of March 2020, because God only knows where they are now. So thank you for getting me to remember that. I appreciate it.
Well, I was just going to say, when kids have favorite stories, and you'll know that sometimes if you ask the students which story you want them, they want to hear, you'll find that they want to hear the same, like certain same ones over and over, like you can get sick of reading them, but they don't. And once they've heard it many times, you can then break them into groups to be acting it out with different characters. So if there were 3 characters, and let's go with, well, we'll do 4 characters: Mama Bear, Papa Bear, Baby Bear, and Goldilocks, let's say. Every group of 4 has a Mama Bear, a Papa Bear, a Goldilocks, and a Baby Bear. And in each group simultaneously, they're acting them out as you go along. And so it's not just multimodal, but they're beginning to remember the story, as we all know. So that's what I prepared for you this evening. And I hope that you are all able to take away some idea. It might not have no games. I feel so badly, Sophia, but you stayed to the end. So maybe there was some good little treasure in there. And
always good treasures, Olenka. Thank you.
So as we close down, let's just do one quick reflection. I'll give you a minute to think. What's your one big takeaway? And each person's takeaway can be different. Antonella's already said the puppets, but it could be something else. So let's have a quick share, and then we'll wrap it up for the day.
For me, and I thought that will be play roles, like you said the story about the birds, and actually it's a really good one because for my kindergarten kids, they will love it. Thank you. It's a good idea. Thanks.
Yay. Thank you. Okay.
Mine is, this is Josephine. Mine is the use of technology, Olenka, because I am not tech savvy, but at least my students are more than I am. So I will even learn from them, as long as I am able to create the criteria for them to do the poster and their presentation. So I think I'm going to try and work that out with the high school together with the teacher. Yes, thank you. Thank you. That's really good.
Oh, great. Thank you.
For me, this is Alaknanda. I will ask my students, make poster and then ask them find the criteria. So they will use that, their language to find the similarities. And yeah.
Okay, great. So that's a good strategy.
This is Gopali.
Yes.
I think the main thing I found the most interesting was creating a checklist of criteria for the students to follow through while they work. I thought I'd give them instructions, maybe oral, sometimes written, but I think if they have a checklist with them, they can self-assess before submitting. I think that was a really good idea, and I'm definitely going to try following that in the future.
Great.
Thank you for this presentation.
Good. You're welcome. Anyone? Well, not anyone else. Who's next?
I'll go next. I think for me, it was just, I'm working with my grade 3s on the food unit, and like you just reminded me. So like use the raft, make a criteria and a checklist. So that's my task this weekend, is to do that. So thank you.
Great.
I think for me, it'd be the, the fart. I work with the little kids, so I'll write that down and see if they actually notice that it spells fart.
Good. Okay.
They will notice, trust me.
Yeah. Okay, next. You don't get to leave. I guess you can leave, but it would be nice if you'd share. If we were in a classroom, I would stand in front of the door, so you can't leave until you share. Yeah. So much for choice, right? Yes, Mirto. Oh, we can't hear you again.
Plug and unplug.
Works most of the times.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I'll take this off then.
Okay.
So for myself, I think for the end of the year, they do a project, a presentation and everything, but I'm going to ask them to do a flip grid too, trying to sell or buy put the criteria to buy the dream house. What they want for the dream house is a flip grid or TikTok or whatever that we'll have to think about. I have to ask them then, because they have to decide which one is the best for them. They use best the technology. Last year we did a washing your hands video. So that was so much fun. The kid, everybody had so much fun. But I think this is good that I'm gonna do for the end.
Okay, great. I was just going to add another way to work with diverse learners is you create the same task, and I'll use the example of the pet store. And the simplest one, I would print out on a pink sheet. Then I'd print it out on a green sheet with a few more criteria, and then print it out on a blue sheet with still more criteria. And then I tell them, this is the same task, but one is a little easier and one is a little more difficult, and they can pick whichever one they want. And they'll all go for the pink one first, the easiest. But then I watch them, and sometimes I just go over and I say, I think you can use the green one or the blue one. And so then they feel encouraged and they're willing to look at the other one because they can see that the one they're looking at, they can definitely do, right? So that's another way if you're doing with multiple class levels. Parminder, how about you?
I was learning your all opinion. I will apply on time, situation. According to that, I will apply your all ideas. Okay, because I am in the Punjabi school. I have so much knowledge about this one. So that's why I took your all ideas, the other speakers' ideas, then I will apply it on the time or situation and according to kids' age.
Great.
I learned so many things from this session.
Wonderful.
You explained so good. Thank you.
Vasiliki, I think I will get the students to create a poster of things that represent themselves, name, age, boy, girl, favorite color, and to present it to the rest of the students. Great, thank you very much. Irina or Irina.
Добрий день.
Добрий день.
Я думаю, ми спробуємо. We will try Flipgrid, but we will do it because we don't have technology in the classroom, like with smart boards, it's not option, but we will do it like watch at home and make it like be an analyst of somebody's work, like peer review. And then they have to present it in the classroom. What did they learn from that and how was it?
Okay.
Kind of do assessment of your peer.
Sounds good. Yeah, please use Flipgrid. You can give students a Flipgrid.
Yeah, they really love it.
Not once a
I-
week, every second week, and make the topics interesting so the students have to find props. And all it takes is getting 1 or 2 students to really do a good job. The others then it kind of raises the standard.
Yeah, they really love it.
And fun. Good.
Yep. Thank you.
And I think we've just got a couple more to go. Leslie?
I was thinking for adults, they could certainly do a poster about themselves, but a group project, I was thinking, you know, like animals to them. I mean, it's not important that they know in Ukrainian how to say koala or kangaroo or whatever, but maybe a poster about their community, you know, where the bars are and where the restaurants, the best restaurants in town.
Yes.
It's sort of looking at their own community in a group.
So I didn't show
recreational facilities.
Yeah.
And that
So,
sort of.
That's a great idea. I didn't show you today, but I've also got criteria and different posters for famous people. And again, all the same criteria, about 5 different things that they would explore. And also for places, as in, usually I do cities. But I think, you know, given that you're teaching adults, you could do like the best places to eat, the best places to shop, the best places for a romantic dinner, or, you know, to go on a walk. Like that could make it quite a bit of fun and great for that age group. I'd always try to set about 5 criteria. And then make sure that when you set those criteria, you also identify visuals. So like they have to include a map, or they have to include, I'm trying to think what other visuals, like pictures of food, right? So that they're looking for those things. It makes the poster better, but most importantly, the support is there for when they go to present.
Thank you so much for tonight. It was such a nice refreshment. Also because, I mean, we just realized like how much you can do with just one activity, with like one task. So for example, say you give the students to write a story, you know, that story can be sang, can be, you know, acted out, can be drawn, can be, yeah, for all kinds of learners, visual, kinesthetic, audio learners. And also Flipgrid. I really wanted to use it with our students, hopefully, for their traveling in the summer. So they can share if they go back home, for example, what they ate, what they did. Yeah, so.
A couple of other ideas, like for Flipgrid, you could do something about my mom and give 5 criteria, and they have to maybe have a picture of their mom, or if they're doing it at home, they bring their mom in, or their grandparent, or I was thinking that in connection to Mother's Day, and then something similar for Father's Day. If they have siblings, you can do like, this is my brother or my sister, and talk about them. And so some of those things will generate the same kind of vocabulary each time, but they're about different people. So the description is always just a little different. Students will love to talk about the favorites. So when it comes to food, she likes blah, 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 but she really likes blah, something like that. So those are just some other Flipgrid possibilities, because when you ask them to do it once, it will be maybe novel, but maybe, you know, have its hiccups. When you ask them to do a second time, they already are familiar with Flipgrid, so they can be more invested in the preparation. And the more they do it, they see Flipgrid as just, oh, it's just a medium. and they concentrate more on the task for them. Antonella, did you want to add anything?
No, I didn't want to add anything specific except for thank you so much. As Marina said, this was a really nice refreshment. And as Sophia alluded to, a nice refresher to remember and regain a lot of good ideas and new ideas. Flipgrid being one of them that I think for all of our heritage language schools, if our families have the technology, we can help them get used to contemplating to have them use it at home, sending it to us. So then even if we have an iPad with a stick to access a network, maybe we can find a way to show it to our classes. Great. And show the different projects. So thank you so much.
Great. So I guess my hope is that you remember creativity and that you spark that in your students and that you enjoy creating those possibilities for them to create. And that when you create some good, simple criteria, it can appeal to a diversity of learners. So that'll bring it to a close. Lovely to see you all. And I know good luck in your next workshop, live in person, outside. So exciting. We're recovering. We're recovering. Okay, next time, if you're interested, lots of games because yeah. But
we'll look forward to it and live. We'll look forward to it and live.
Okay. Take care,
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Olenka. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Good night, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night. Thanks
Bye.
again.